The breaking point.
This is Ubisoft.
The moment where Ubisoft, the once mighty gaming empire,
Join us.
has been forced to do the unthinkable. Leverage its most valuable IPs, split itself into two, and face the brutal acts of corporate restructuring. Because here's the cold, hard truth. Assassin's Creed Shadows was not just a game. It was Ubisoft's last gamble. It was a desperate attempt to prove to investors, to the industry, and to the community that they could still compete, that they can make games that people actually want. There was a time when Ubisoft was unstoppable.
I've grown up playing Ubisoft games my whole life.
It's very, very fun, and I like all the Assassin's Creed everywhere.
Absolutely incredible. I've had an amazing time here.
They were pioneering open worlds, setting trends and delivering one masterpiece after another. But then, something changed. Fast forward to today. Even billion-dollar investments in franchises like Star Wars and Avatar aren't enough to turn things around.
I don't think that there's a single thing about this game that I find appealing.
Gameplay is just not very exciting.
And as Ubisoft stumbles, the sharks are circling. Among those in the waiting is Tencent, the Chinese gaming giant that already owns a sizable chunk of Ubisoft, and also a 25% stake in the new Ubisoft entity holding the big three Ubisoft IPs. They're ready to step in and do what Ubisoft's own leadership won't: tear it apart and rebuild it in its own image. As Shadows finds it difficult to deliver, here's what's coming next. A severe corporate restructuring that has forced Ubisoft to split into two separate entities. So how did Ubisoft find itself in this desperate situation? In this video, we will uncover the story behind the collapse and dive deeper into how nuclear levels of mismanagement contributed to the split and downfall of one of the biggest gaming companies the world has ever seen. The Ubisoft story began in the quiet and sleepy French countryside of Brittany. In the mid-1980s, 5 entrepreneurial brothers, Yves, Michel, Claude, Gerard, and Christian Guillemot, decided to turn around their family's farming support business into a tech venture. The idea was to be a video game distributor, importing software from cheaper UK suppliers to France. This mail-order distribution model was an overnight success, earning about $5.8 million by 1986. Ubisoft, short for Ubiquitous Software, quickly expanded from distribution into game development. They released their first in-house game, titled Zombie, in 1989 as a precursor to the survival horror genre. A pivotal turn came in 2000 when Ubisoft acquired rights to Tom Clancy's works, spawning the tactical shooters Rainbow Siege 6, Ghost Recon, and stealth action Splinter Cell. Titles that earned critical acclaim and solidified Ubisoft's reputation for rich, franchise-worthy games. They were hitting their stride. One big release a year was the cadence, and each one felt special. Ubisoft's flagship series, Assassin's Creed, launched in 2007, exemplified this era. Each installment offered new historical settings and refinements, and fans eagerly awaited the one major release per year.
And our fans are amazing. You guys are the best fans.
During the late 2000s, franchises like Far Cry and Assassin's Creed became annual or biennial staples, each selling millions and defining open-world action for the generation. Ubisoft had successfully cemented its position as an industry leader, and gamers came out in complete support of all Ubisoft launches. Far Cry 3 went on to sell over 10 million copies and completely redefined open-world games. The game is a classic even to this day. Their success bred more ambition. By the 2010s, Ubisoft's leadership pushed for more games, more often. The company became known for its open-world formula, sprawling maps littered with side quests and collectibles, which was replicated across series from Far Cry to Watch Dogs. What was once a steady drumbeat of one prestige release per year had now swelled into multiple titles. Ubisoft's evolution from scrappy startup to industry titan was complete, but the stage had been set for the struggles to come. It's the early 2010s. Ubisoft is no longer the underdog. They're now a global giant. But the company's reach had begun to exceed its grasp. Internal plans aimed for an unprecedented slate of games, reports revealed plans for up to 6 major AAA releases in just 2 years. This was an aggressive expansion far beyond the old annual cycle. Insiders described a bigger is better mentality as Ubisoft opened new studios and poured resources into more simultaneous projects than ever. The result? Overextension. Products suffered delays, quality issues mounted, and morale frayed under relentless schedules. They tried to do too much too fast. High-profile releases like Assassin's Creed Unity launched with game-breaking bugs, souring players' trust. Even more polished titles started feeling formulaic. Critics began deriding the Ubisoft formula as shorthand for repetitive gameplay and map clutter. Moreover, misjudging market trends did not help either. Ubisoft's leadership made it a point to chase every fad, often with missteps that fell flat. For example, in 2020, Ubisoft launched Hyperscape, an attempt to capitalize on the battle royale craze led by Fortnite and PUBG. But since it lacked a unique hook in a crowded genre, Hyperscape struggled and was shut down in less than 2 years. Another planned battle royale, Ghost Recon Frontline, was scrapped after negative feedback. This underscores a pattern where Ubisoft was chasing trends without understanding their audience. Then, during the crypto boom, Ubisoft dove into NFTs with a platform called Quartz, offering in-game NFT items in Ghost Recon Breakpoint. The rollout was met with widespread gamer backlash, ridicule, and extremely low uptake. Yet, Ubisoft's executives doubled down. In an extraordinary interview, Nicolas Poard, VP of Ubisoft, defended the NFT rollout by stating that gamers don't get it, insulting their own customers for not buying into the hype. Developers within Ubisoft at this time were also at odds with management on NFTs. "We are far from fun," wrote the French union representing Ubisoft Paris, Solidaires Informatique. This shows the severity of the disconnect between developers and management within Ubisoft. Within months, the NFT experiment was quietly put down as a failure. Whether it was hero shooters, battle royale, or survival crafting games, Ubisoft appeared to follow rather than lead. The company's attempts to ride trends often came too late or without the polish to compete in a very competitive market. The samey feel of its open worlds and the Me Too projects and hot genres eroded the brand's identity. After a string of disappointments, Ubisoft had to cancel or delay at least half a dozen announced projects to refocus, an implicit admission that its strategy had overreached. As Ubisoft's creative spark dimmed, a new force took center stage: monetization.
Here comes the money. Here we go. Money talk.
The company has become a poster child for aggressive in-game revenue models, even in traditional single-player experiences. This shift would prove short-sighted, inciting player backlash that hurt the company's reputation and sales. Many Ubisoft titles pivoted to games as a service, with endless updates and purchasable content. Multiplayer games like Rainbow Six Siege introduced loot boxes and season passes. Even single-player franchises were not spared. The Assassin's Creed series began including premium currency stores selling cosmetics, resources, and even gameplay boosts. You can pre-order in-game currency for a single-player Ubisoft game before the game is even launched. Fans who love exploring ancient worlds were left feeling nickel and dimed in a $60 game. Perhaps the most controversial was Ubisoft's sale of paid XP boosts in single-player games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Valhalla. These boosters let players level up faster, essentially charging extra to bypass a grind that critics suspected was deliberately imposed. Ubisoft also managed to earn infamy for its digital rights management. Single-player games like The Crew required a constant internet connection, even if you were playing solo. This policy came back to bite Ubisoft a decade later. When it shut down the Crew servers in 2024, players who had purchased the game lost all ability to play. In response, a consumer movement, Stop Killing Games, was started to challenge the legality of publishers destroying video games they have sold to customers. The movement has continued to gain traction across the US and the EU. Online sentiments towards Ubisoft turned sour as these practices accumulated. Hashtags trending on Twitter called out Ubisoft's greed, and even longtime fans began skipping releases. The numbers told the story. Unit sales for franchises like Ghost Recon, The Division, and even Assassin's Creed entries started declining from their peaks. Ubisoft's net bookings dropped by 9.8% in fiscal 2024 amid these headwinds. Star Wars Outlaws also had a less than stellar launch with massive drop-off in interest. Where gamers once saw a trusted brand, they now saw a corporation prioritizing monetization over gameplay. The backlash reached Ubisoft's boardroom. In late 2019, after the flop of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, CEO Yves Guillemot admitted critical reception and player dissatisfaction were factors and vowed to learn from these mistakes. The company promised to pull back on pay-to-win elements and give teams more time to craft quality experiences. But reversing course in a big organization like Ubisoft is very challenging. As players grew frustrated, so did investors and even Ubisoft's own employees. The company's troubles are no longer just contained to forums and reviews. They're making headlines in business papers and prompting internal strife. Ubisoft's market capitalization plummeted from over $12 billion in 2018 to under $2 billion by 2025, reflecting investors' loss of confidence. Ubisoft's financial reports have turned bleak. The company's net bookings, a key measure of sales, fell off a cliff in 2024. In the holiday quarter of 2024, net bookings were down 52% year over year. This was a stunning collapse for France's largest game publisher. The stock price of Ubisoft followed suit, dropping to around £11 per share, down 52% from a year earlier and nearly 85% off its peak heights. Under pressure, CEO Yves Guillemot made several PR blunders. In a January 2023 email, amid project delays and poor results, Guillemot told staff, "The ball's in your court," to deliver on time and budget, a phrasing many employees interpreted as him blaming workers for the company's woes. The backlash was swift. Ubisoft Paris developers threatened to strike in protest. Within days, Guillemot issued an apology to staff, saying, "I'm sorry this was perceived that way," but the damage to internal morale was done. This came after years of other grievances. In 2020, Ubisoft had been rocked by a workplace harassment and toxic culture scandal leading to the ouster of several top executives.
This summer, we learned that certain Ubisoft employees did not uphold our company's values, and that our systems failed to protect the victims of their behavior. I am truly sorry.
Yet, many employees felt reforms were superficial. By 2021, French game workers' unions filed lawsuits and complained of continued mismanagement, with Ubisoft having to offer pay raises to stem an exodus of talent. The company's handling of the harassment fallout was seen as slow and defensive, which hurt its image as an employer. Externally, Ubisoft often downplayed or deflected criticism, which further eroded trust. Guillemot initially attributed it to players not seeing the value in market fatigue, before finally admitting the need for internal changes. Such remarks show how Ubisoft's leadership is out of touch with what gamers are saying. By 2024, investor confidence in Ubisoft was deeply shaken. The Guillemot family, which had once heroically fended off a hostile takeover by Vivendi in 2018 to keep the company independent, now saw their stake in a much diminished entity. Rumors swirled of potential acquisitions or investments, from private equity and activist investors like AJ Investments to Chinese tech giant Tencent, increasing its stake in the company as Ubisoft's depressed valuation made it a possible takeover target.
French video game maker Ubisoft is lagging behind its rivals, and Reuters can reveal an investor pushing for its sale has gathered support from 10% of its shareholders.
The Guillemot family insisted that Ubisoft would stay independent and execute a turnaround, but the tone had shifted. In an earnings call, Ubisoft frankly said its FY25 goal simply to break even, signaling that survival, not growth, was the priority. Cost cutting has been underway and the company closed multiple studios and implemented targeted restructurings at others. For an unstoppable company, this retreat was stark. Publicly, Ubisoft has tried to put on a brave face, often highlighting upcoming titles like Assassin's Creed Shadows have solid pre-orders and could turn things around. But this turned out not to be the case, as the game is now struggling to sell and has been sucked into a world of controversies. Investors are no longer buying the hype. They want to see results or else see Ubisoft sold to someone who can deliver them. So here we are. Ubisoft, once a giant, is now a company standing at the edge of a knife. The choices they make in the coming years will determine whether they reclaim their place among gaming's greats, or if they become just another cautionary tale of corporate greed and mismanagement. The writing is on the wall. The world-class IPs are there. Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Rainbow Siege 6. But are they enough? Or has Ubisoft burned too much trust, diluted too many franchises, and wasted too many opportunities to claw its way back? A comeback is possible, but it will demand more than just another Assassin's Creed game. It will take real innovation, real risk-taking, and not trend chasing. It means empowering developers instead of forcing them into the same formulaic cycles that got them here in the first place. These next releases, they aren't just games. They're Ubisoft's last best chance at proving to investors, and more importantly, to players, that they still matter. And yet, for all these possibilities, there's one elephant in the room: leadership. The Guillemot family has steered Ubisoft from day one, but are they still the ones that are going to save it? Investors are asking if it's time for new blood at the top, or if the company's only way out is a deeper alliance with Tencent. If leadership doesn't change, will anything else? Because if Ubisoft can't fix itself, someone else will.